Thank you, respected Chairperson. A very good evening to all the participants. In this August gathering of physicians, I'm glad to be standing here tall as a nutritionist among you. And the carb-rich session is going to be the millets, followed by the protein and then the fats. So millets in our diet, why and how is what I'm going to be addressing today. Uh, of course, I thank you for having me here. Today, I also represent Diabetes Association of Baroda as one of the trustees. And as our Prime Minister says, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, today we have so many different associations all working together to achieve universal health coverage. That is the tagline of World Health Organization. And I bring to you greetings from the very finest university of India as well as the globe, the Maharaja Sayaji Rao University, and I belong to the Foods and Nutrition Department. The overview of the presentation is as follows. I'm going to talk about different types of millets. Why do we eat millets? The nutritive value, millet-based products, in vitro availability of iron and zinc from pearl millet-based products, and recipes, of course, and then the conclusions and take-home messages. Now, millets are small cereal grains that belong to the grass family. They're resilient in harsh environment and commonly cultivated in Asian and African countries. And the millet derived from the French word millet, which means that a handful of millet contains thousands of seeds of grains. Now, the potential of millets and varieties grown is as follows. They are resilient and they are adaptive to various ecological conditions, and they very well thrive in rain-fed as well as arid climate. And agriculture, therefore, the International Year of Millets declared last year, we continued this year and should be continued forever because millets were a part of our daily life. So let's look at the different types of millets. We have the major millets, which includes the pearl millet, sorghum and finger millet, which is bajra, jowar, ragi. Then we have the minor millets, which is foxtail, barnyard, little millet, kodo millet and the proso millet. And then we have pseudo millets, which are amaranth, rajagira and the kutu. These are the photographs. The pearl millet is called bajra, sorghum is the jowar and the finger millet is the ragi. Then we have the kang, we have the moreyo, we have the samai, we have the kodri and we have the vari. And the pseudo millets, which is amaranth and the buckwheat kutu. Now millets, especially the pearl millet, is one of the most extensively cultivated cereals in the world after rice, wheat and sorghum, particularly in the arid to semi-arid regions of Baroda and the India, and therefore primarily the staple food crop. When you look at the production, Rajasthan grows 51% of pearl millet, followed by other states wherein Gujarat contributes to 10%. So are millets nutritionally superior over other cereals for their micronutrient profile and bioactive flavonoids, which make them highly valuable? Or do they have high protein content and do they have high mineral content? Let's look at it. Now this busy slide talks about the nutritive value of millets in comparison with the common rice and common wheat. And the range of the millets is 6.2 to 13.27. The fat in millets ranges from 1.1 to 5.5. They are rich in carbs, around 60 grams, and the energy per 100 gram is 1342 to 1490. When you look at the calcium and the iron content of the millets, the range is 15.27 to 364. And so has the iron content is also good, 1.26 to 6.42. When you look at the vitamin content of the millets, the thiamine ranges, the riboflavin, the niacin and the biotin is good enough for you to meet your daily requirements. When you look at the other lutein or beta carotene or total carotenoids, which are anti-inflammatory, the millets are very rich in these. It is having starch, it has glucose, it has sucrose, and maybe some would say that, oh, they are calorie-driven millets, so should we eat them or should we not? Yes, we should. It has good fats, the palmitic, the stearin. Then it has the histidine, the lysine, valine, good amino acid profile. And when you compare it with the RDA, how much a person is supposed to eat, the millets can contribute a lot in your recommended daily allowances. So, how do you eat them? There are lots of millet-based products. In this westernized fast food world, when you go to any restaurant, the Horeca industry used to always serve you maybe roti and paneer tikka masala. But now you have millet khichdi, you have millet bhakri, our very own bajra rotlo is in vogue again. Okay? And thanks to the International Year of Millets, we have so many millet-based idlis, dosas, parathas, cookies. We have sweets, we have savories, we have bakery products, we have fermented foods, we have snacks and sides. And we have puffs, we have puffs of all millets, sorghum, foxtail, pearl millet, extruded snacks, and we have the children fast food is what they love. Kurkure types, so everything can be made from millets, from muffins to cookies to rotis. So this is just a variety of foods which can be interesting and not just rotla that can be eaten and given to the food for breakfast, for lunch, for snacks or for dinner. But how do you eat millets? We conducted in vitro studies to understand whether what is seen in the nutritive value of Indian food books is that actual amount available after digestion. How much of these nutrients are actually available? This study was conducted in Gujarat. All the various varieties of pearl millet, this study is focused on pearl millet. All the various varieties of pearl millets were identified, local grains, and then the local recipes were assessed. These are the rotla, sukhadi, ghesh, and what are the results? The recipes, they had a very high phytate to zinc ratio, way above the cutoff value, and it provides a very sufficient evidence that the iron in the millet is not available. The zinc in the millet is not available. Okay. The iron content, however, can be increased by simple cooking techniques such as soaking, pounding and dehusking. So what's the advice? Enhancers, you can either soak, pound or dehusk or add enhancers such as ascorbic acid, citric acid, tartaric acid, which is present in easily available fruits and vegetables such as guava, amla, lemon and leafy vegetables. Other important simple processing techniques are germination and fermentation, which also showed a positive improvement in the overall nutritional characteristics of the millets, and excessive dehulling, polishing in millets resulted in reduction of the dietary fiber, so that is not advised. Polyphenol, however, which is the villain present in the millet, gets removed. So it depends on what is your need. If you are having a metabolic syndrome, if you are having a cardiometabolic factor, and if you want to improve your antioxidant intake, use the millet the way it is. If you want to improve your iron content, the mineral content, you do the pounding and dehusking and remove the outer layer. Depending on the need of the patient, the food is served with a simple processing technique. Soaking actually resulted in increase in zinc solubility by 38%. Okay, and soaking under optimal conditions activates phytates, results in phytic hydrolysis, and 2 hours of soaking is advisable because it facilitates endogenous phytate degradation, particularly when combined with milling and cooking. The another a very simple technique which we can do at home level or hospital level is germination, which enhances the digestibility and nutritive value of the grain. Okay, and also it reduces the phytic acid and improves iron absorption and availability. So germination also has been found to be significantly there is an increase in crude protein of the millet flour. So when you want to use your bajra rotla, it is advised to germinate the grains and then convert it into a flour, which will give you a better nutritive value. Fermentation is another good process. Your idlis, dokla, handvo, all can be made by fermentation process. The pH reduces complex carbohydrates. So all who think that millets are rich in calories, they are rich in very high in carbs. This is the process which you can do and give it to your patients. Okay, because complex carbs are broken down to simple sugars, proteins to amino acids. Digestibility is very good. Most of your diabetic patients are elderly, and for them this is a very good diet. Also, acid and alcoholic fermentation can be used for cereals, legumes, and vegetables to increase their nutritive value and improve their physical characteristics. Other nutritional advantages are increase in the content of riboflavin and B12. You know, the world is suffering from B12 deficiency. It's a big public health problem. And here's a simple solution which can be done at the home scale level. It not only increases your protein digestibility and starch digestibility, but also gives you good amount of vitamin B. So fermentation in millet by lactic acid bacteria has a potential as a prebiotic treatment for even diarrhea. You know that diabetics have a big issue of gastroparesis, and here's a simple solution. In Gujarat, the millet, the way they eat is, the recipe is called ghesh. That means you use a lactic acid chaas to prepare the millet. So millets are pounded in the house with a pestle and mortar. The outer grains are removed, the shells are removed, and then they are soaked in buttermilk, and then the ghesh is prepared. So look at the traditional diets, the way people were eating, and every good factor, or we call it food anthropology, and our cultural diets need to be revived. And this study of ours shows that. Also, there's a remarkable rise in quercetin, which was observed when rabdi was fermented, cooked, and fermented in an earthen pot. Now, rabdi is another very traditional diet which is consumed in Rajasthan. Okay, so another good process which is very simple is called blanching. You steep and in the boiling water at 98 degrees centigrade for 30 seconds and dry it in 1 hour either in the sun. And that millet has high calcium, phosphorus, iron, magnesium. It has low anti-nutrient content and higher in vitro digestibility as compared to the malting method. So let's look at the carbohydrate. We did the GIGL studies of pearl millet, where the OGTT test was done, and the recipes were bajra bhakri, jowar bhakri, chila, khichdi, thalapit, and wheat roti. You all know that when you look at the glycemic index, the low is less than 55, medium is between 56 to 69, and high GI foods are more than 70. This is where our millet-based recipes ranked. Chila, very easy, replaceable stuff. We all love dosa, so make millet chilas. It has low GI. Thalipit, low GI. Jowar bhakri, low GI. Wheat roti, low GI. Khichdi, medium. But if you have simple bajra bhakri, which is bajra rotla, which is high GI. Okay. And when you look at the glycemic load of this, again chila ranked first, followed by thalipit, khichdi, wheat roti, jowar bhakri, and regular bhakri. So what's the conclusion? Glycemic load is particularly useful as it considers actual portion of the food, making it a better predictor for blood sugar response. And for individuals who want to manage their blood sugar, you need to understand how to count your carbs. And this is a general overview of various millets and their glycemic index. They range from medium to GI. But please remember, the grain may have low GI. But when you eat the food, depending on the type of recipe, depending on the type it is processed, the GI will change. Okay? And what are the take-home messages? Soak the millets. Use iron tawa. Okay? Traditional meal patterns have to be remembered and followed by all. Total nutritional composition have to be understood of the raw as well as cooked recipes. Antioxidant values of the traditional diets with various processing techniques from various setups, urban, rural as well as tribal, with or without disease, need to be assessed. Also, you need to have a database of glycemic index of Indian foods, because the way I make, you will not make. So there are different recipes, different traditional recipes. All GIs have to be listed and they're used for the dietary advice. So this entire study was a part of the CIAT, that is International Food Policy Research Institute, and Harvest Plus Washington DC project. They provided us financial support for this for conducting this study. We have several publications based on this project, and I would like to thank my entire team who till date have been my pillars of support and are with me in my research journey. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am.